Hey guys, how's it going? Tonight what we're going to do is take a look at Azure Data Factory. So this is going to be kind of a micro series on how to set up Azure Data Factory using Terraform, uh, kind of where we might want to draw the line on Terraform and then where we'd actually want to step into the GUI and build things from there. We're going to talk a little bit about GitHub and how that connects. And then what we're going to do is some demos. So uh, the first thing that we should probably talk about though is just what is Azure Data Factory. If you're coming to this video, you probably already know what it is, but it's basically a low code, no code, drag and drop ETL tool provided by Azure. Some of the key components are the top level would be, of course, Data Factory. So that's the factory itself. You can have multiple factories within the same subscription. So it's kind of cool if you want to have like dev, QA, and prod factories. We have a system assigned identity. This is the identity of the factory, and so when you are allowing that factory to perform tasks on, I don't know, databases or storage accounts or work with Key Vault, then this is what you will apply those permissions to. Next up, we have what's called an integration runtime. One of the more common ones is what's called a self-hosted integration runtime, but these runtimes are essentially the compute power behind Data Factory. Uh, One of my favorite things about Data Factory is the self-hosted integration runtime, which you would typically install in your on-prem data center or in a data center that is in a different VNet or network in general, because what that does is it allows for TLS 1.2, which is transport layer security. So this is encrypted traffic. So what that means is it's really useful when you want a very quick and simple way to pull data out of another environment without dealing with things like public IP addresses and firewalls and all that. It just gives you a really nice, easy, simple, secure way to get access to that. Next up, like I said, this is drag and drop ETL. So kind of at its core is we have what's called pipelines. So the point of a pipeline is to, in a nutshell, get data from source and put it in a sink. So I prefer the term destination, but in ADF they call it sink. And I've got the word dataset in parentheses because that's where you'll see this within Azure Data Factory is under datasets. So when you kind of have these, trying to think how to phrase it, I would call them activities, transformations, things like that. Like, for example, if you're taking data from source to sink, well, that's just a copy transformation. But you can do other things within a pipeline as well. But next up would be how do we schedule these pipelines to run? Well, that's called a trigger. I'm saying schedules underneath the word triggers, but it could be on a fixed schedule, on a tumbling window. It could be event driven. So there's a few options there. But just in general, think about triggers as the mechanism used for kicking off a pipeline. I've also got down here linked services as well. So if you are working with, say, like an ODBC source, SQL Server as a source, maybe you're working with your data lake as a source or a destination, each one of those items would be considered a linked service. So what we really would need to set up is, we'd have to have that database somewhere or that storage account somewhere. And then what we'd do is we would say, well, hey, I want to allow my system assigned identity permission to work with that linked service. Then I would create a linked service, and then I would create sources and sinks off of those. And these linked services also, they are not limited to data sets. They could also be things like key vaults, for example. So if I wanted to connect with a database, which is pretty common, I might have a key vault that has my credentials stored in it, and so I would need to have permission to work with that. That key vault will be a linked service, so I'll show you how to do all that. Don't worry. Okay, let's take a quick look at the data factory that I have here. And I'll show you, this is kind of what the project is going to look like. So the goal will be for us to have kind of a dynamic list of tables that we iterate through. And so what I have is I have AdventureWorks and SQL Server. And this is sitting on a Windows Server 2022 data center. So basically, I've got this. I've kind of got this like toy data set out here, this toy database out here, and what we're going to do is we're going to um, basically pull in all of the tables that are in the person schema, all the tables that are in all of the tables that are in the human resources schema. So what we'll do is we'll kind of iterate through that dynamically. So after we get that list, we're going to do a for each, and so for each one of those tables, what we're going to do is a copy transformation or a copy activity, where we copy that table and we load it into our data lake. We're going to load it into the data lake as Parquet files. We're also going to set up a webhook with Slack so that if we have failures, then we can get nice little notifications. So what we'll do is we'll pull out some parameters like the pipeline name and some other information like that. Once we kind of have our pipeline the way that we want it, what we're going to do is step into our triggers, and we are going to schedule this. So what we'll do is we'll basically reuse those same pipelines, and we're going to import some tables from the human resources schema, and then do the same thing from the person schema as well. So I think that covers most of the topics that we're going to be looking at. I also wanted to show you that we will be looking at this also from a Terraform point of view as well. So I want to show you kind of what we would set up in Terraform. So for example, if we want to set up the Azure Data Factory, we want to do some GitHub configuration behind the scenes so that we are working out of GitHub rather than just kind of hoping for the best. So we will be doing some code promotion there. We're going to do some role assignments for those link services like I was talking about. I've got this other code commented out because I really wanted to show you the difference between managing some of this through Data Factory and where we'd want to draw the line, because we don't necessarily want to do everything in Terraform. And I also wanted to show you something kind of cool with lake storage. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm loading up my my data lake would be, I really enjoy snapshots. It's extremely easy to use, but it can get to be kind of expensive if you're just copying your data all the time. So one of the things I wanted to show you is this concept called, it's basically a storage management policy or a lifecycle management. And so what we can do is we can set different tiers at different dates. So for example, if we have data that kind of sits idle for, we can say like for a month or for 30 days, we basically would keep that as a hot tier. And then after 30 days, we're going to have that data transfer to a cool tier. And then maybe after something like 90 days or 180 days, I can't remember what the minimum threshold is, but then what we could do is set that to archive afterwards. And so each one of those will reduce our cost. So kind of handy to have this in your back pocket to keep your costs low, and while also making your ETL, I think really, really simple and intuitive. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we are going to probably tear some of this stuff down and then stand it right back up. So I will see you later.